Welcome to the Veterans Impact Show, where our commitment is to help, hope, and healing of our veteran family and our nation. I'm Jim Blythe, a U.S. Navy veteran and a certified senior advisor. Join us as we continue the mission of leadership and commitment to our communities and our great country. Why, you never know where we're going to go or who you're going to meet. We invite you to join in, plug in, and share in what we do. This is your Veterans Impact Show. Welcome aboard, and gosh, I've got a great show today. I think you're going to have so much fun and really enjoy it. This is Ladies' Day, but guys, I've got some really, really powerful ladies. But before we start, I need to say a special thank you to DBTV Network for carrying us 3 times during the week, Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesday. So take a look at DBTV and enjoy it. AUN, thank you as well. And to my company, Fairway Independent Mortgage, my NMLS number is 311548, and the corporate one is 2289. We are an equal opportunity lender, so you need some help mortgage-wise, just go to Fairway. We're the biggest in the nation. I also want to say a special thank you to Cedric White in Healing Thine Heart Ministries and what you do, and by way of introducing Cedric White, my minister as well as my co-host, U.S. Navy veteran, Gunner's Missile Tech. What else did you do, Cedric?
Well, that from a Navy perspective, that was it. I was a gunner's mate missile technician and had a wonderful time. Now we do counseling for families, for couples, for individuals who just want a little bit of assistance in dealing with life's issues.
Well, it's good because Diane and I have been there, and it really helped. All right, I want to introduce 2 amazing ladies. As I read their bios, I went, wow.
Yeah.
Every young woman in the United States in high school and college age needs to know about these 2 ladies, in my opinion, because they are the absolute examples of the opportunity that await in the military, especially the Navy. Of course, I'm a little prejudiced. I'd like you to meet Lena. You are Commodore Lena Kaman, which is amazing, and you were over REDCOM. So welcome aboard, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Okay, now, what got you to go into the military?
Great question, Jim, and thank you so much. It's an honor to be here with you and Cedric in the studio, and it's an honor to join everyone out there at home watching. So I'm happy to be here to tell everyone a little bit about the Navy Reserves, and all the adventures I've had in learning and leading over the last 25 years. Next month will be 25 years that I've been in the Navy, and it's just really flown by. So I'm from Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I don't own a cheese head, but I am a cheese head.
I hate to tell you, but you're in Dallas right now. Yeah. Don't mention that real loudly. Okay?
I will always root for the Packers, but I also root for whatever team in the city where I'm living at the time. So rest assured.
Well, pray for the Cowboys. Don't root, pray.
So my father is a retired Navy chief. He was a gunner's mate, just like Cedric.
My guy.
Yes. And even though he was retired before I was born, I heard all about the Navy from him. I heard his sea stories, most of them good, some of them bad. Like you, Jim, he was also in Vietnam. He joined right at the tail end of the Korean War. But I heard about the Navy through him and his love of everything he did, the camaraderie. And when it became time for me to go to college, my mother, who again married him after his Navy time, but learned about it from him, she suggested I apply for a Navy scholarship. And the next thing I knew, I was driving my little cabriolet convertible from Wisconsin to Florida to start flight school. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Well, that's great. You know, one of the things is my grandfather was career. Started in 1920 as a machinist mate. He finally graduated from the military in 1952 as commander of a ship, lieutenant commander. So he worked his way up through the hawse-pipe. I wanted to go into the reserves when I was in high school, and he raised holy Cain with me and said, you know, we're gonna have this war and blah, 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 and I don't want you to go. Biggest mistake I ever made. Biggest mistake I ever made. And when I got out, I went down to the University of Texas and saw these midshipmen, and I'm like, There's a Navy program? So you are talking about what you did was what I wanted to do, and I want more people to know about that. It's not about me, it's about the opportunity that is available, especially for young women. And that's amazing.
We don't always get the opportunity to know everything that's out there in the Navy. For example, even with my dad being a retired Navy sailor, I didn't realize all the career fields that the Navy has. And I definitely wasn't thinking of myself as a pilot. And so I thought, okay, I'll go to the Navy, get a Navy scholarship, and I'll be on ships. And that would have been great. But when I learned that I could be a Navy helicopter pilot, my life changed, and I couldn't imagine my life any other way or my career any other way. But there's such a wide variety of skill sets: cyber, nursing, doctor, pharmacy, journalism, in addition to the helicopters, the planes, the ships, the subs.
Quartermaster.
Right.
Serving on. And when I went aboard the Truman to do interviews, thanks to Woody Beale, there were young women working on the flight deck, which blew me away.
Yes.
Good, that's tough work. Now, I'd also like to introduce Commander Cheryl Collins. You went a different path, but tell us a little bit about how you got into the Navy and what motivated you and what you do in the Navy. I think that's amazing to talk about that job.
Absolutely, Jim, and thank you for having us too. I represent a traditional reservist. So I got into the Navy Reserve a little later in life. I had a career in video production. I had a degree in journalism and didn't know that I could do military service and do what I was doing for my career until I started asking some questions. I heard in the through the grapevine that there was a Navy Reserve, and they had a position called Public Affairs Officer. And I was like, oh, well, that sounds interesting. That sounds a little bit up my line of what I did for a living. So I just started talking to a recruiter in my 30s and just made some calls and found out that, yes, they have a program called the Direct Commission Officers Program into the Reserve. It takes certain specialties. Journalism is one of them, law, intelligence. We have certain, mine was one of them. So I just talked to a recruiter, and then I was selected before a board and picked up back like in 2008. So it's been a while ago. And it's just been the best job ever for me because I do more of the traditional 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks out of the year kind of thing. And I still have my career in the civilian sector as well.
You have a studio. Is that, did I understand that?
I do. I do video. I do voiceovers for a living now. So kind of like what you're doing, like podcasting, and clients from around the world will hire me for different jobs in my civilian job. And I've even gotten to voice some stuff for the Navy as well. So I use my talents that I have from my civilian skill set and use it for the Navy. Like a lot of times I'm producing videos. Tomorrow I'll be out shooting video and pictures of the events that we're going to be doing this week in Fort Worth. And so I can't help but tell the story of the Navy no matter what I do.
I got to tell you, we are a maritime nation. A lot of people don't realize it, especially here in Central Texas. But there is so much that the Navy did for me in terms of leadership.
Yes.
Cedric, you've talked about that many times.
Like I said, the Navy, I do more now, and I experience actually more now from the military, from the Navy, than I did when I was there. I had no idea, even as I'm listening right now, as to what you guys are talking about. It's like, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know.
I didn't either, though.
Right,
I didn't
right.
know that. They don't talk about it that often.
Right.
We're like a hidden gem.
And that's the wonderful thing, though, because I think military, and of course we're somewhat biased toward the Navy because that's where we come from. But just the military as a whole, quite often for those who don't know, they don't really understand. So there's a misnomer out there that it's all rough and it's all bad. There's some wonderful things. My life is what it is because of the Navy. And I love that. And even as I listened, as I was reading your bio, Commander, I was like, wow, she did some things. And you just, I'm old Navy. So Jim was saying there were females on the flight deck. There were no females on the ship when I was in, in my area. But the things that ladies, females get to do today is outstanding, and the opportunities that are there.
with all of the technical things too, there's places that they fit in that are just exceptional. But one of the things that I believe, because I'm still a licensed pilot, I was not a pilot in the Navy, but women sometimes, and I know I'm going to make a lot of feathers ruffle, but women have ways to focus as well as to multitask. I think many women make really, really outstanding pilots. And I got to tell you, anybody who flies a helicopter, you got my attention. My last cruise was with helicopters, and I don't.
Well, Jim, the fact is, from a psychological perspective, it shouldn't be something that ruffles feathers. It's, the fact of the matter is, men are more apt to compartmentalize, right? We can be very focused in one area for a long time, and we're good at that. Whereas, and my wife has proven it, she can do so many multiple things, and it's like, wait a minute, you're doing all of this stuff. I'm tired just from looking at you. So I don't think it should be a negative thing. It's just a plus, and the opportunities that's given. I think that's what's wonderful. The opportunity is given to you.
And as a helicopter pilot, what a lot of people don't realize is you are using both hands and both feet all the time.
Yes.
All the time.
It takes a lot of coordination, and I have a lot of hours as a helicopter flight instructor, and that's really my passion, is to lead and mentor and coach that next generation.
I can tell.
But like you were saying, it does. And I have students that would say to me, ma'am, but you gave me the controls and you just wanted me to fly. And I'm like, yes, but here you are, and you learned. but it does take a lot of coordination.
So in doing that, yes, it's a lot of coordination, but you were also a combat pilot. You flew in the Middle East. Tell us just a little bit of story about what you experienced there, because you were flying in some pretty bad conditions, but you were flying off the Leyte Gulf, I believe.
Yes, absolutely. I was on the USS Leyte Gulf, and this was in 2004. We were on a 6-month deployment for Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom. And really our main job was oil platform patrol. So there's 2 oil platforms that sit off the coast of Iraq, and the insurgents were trying to destroy those oil platforms and disrupt the oil industry, to disrupt the economy. And so we would fly from sunset to sun up, and we would guard those platforms and guard the pipeline in country. And such an honor to be doing that, and to be doing the things that my family and friends were at home seeing on the news and reading in the newspaper.
Did you ever really worry about, here comes a missile, or here comes a SAM? Did you ever have those thoughts? Because you were probably pretty low too, weren't you?
We were, absolutely. We were flying very low. I was relieved, and I had faith in our systems that would have warned us of those type of attacks. Also, our technology was amazing, and we had night vision imagery and radar imagery, and so I was comforted in those systems. But yes, it was scary.
Someday, when you and your husband are going to join Diane and I at the NDS thing this coming Sunday, I'm going to introduce you to Mark Liebman, who was a SAR rescue pilot who landed on destroyers in Vietnam. He would have killed to have had the instruments you had. And he flew the Command UH-2C. Yeah. I think that, though, that's exciting for young women to go, wow, I can actually do something like that? Yes. And I can travel, and I can go. You know, they say, join the Navy and see the world. Well, that wasn't the case for women 20 years ago, correct?
Correct. Yep. And I would like to tell you a story from my time over there. So we got a call that there was a medevac, a medical evacuation off of a Pakistani ship. So it's just as important to do partnership building and ally relations as it is to defend and do the other operations. And so we got this call. It was the middle of the night, and our ship wasn't able to tell us where the Pakistani ship was. So we had to find it. We were running low on gas, and we eventually found the ship because we knew time was of the essence, because the officer that was injured needed to get to medical facilities. And so with a lot of coordination, we got to the ship. We were able to lift the injured sailor and an accompanying person to go and take them to land. At the time, we didn't realize the importance of that mission. It was so important that the admiral of the entire fleet at the time wrote a message thanking me and the other pilot because it increased that partnership between the U.S.
Wonderful, yeah.
So it was one person whose life we saved or got him to the hospital, but in the big picture, it increased that partnership building.
Commodore, one of the things that in my prayers, I pray to bring us back together, but also to protect our warfighters who are also emissaries of peace.
Yes.
When you are overseas, you represent the United States. When you wear that uniform, you represent all of us in the United States, and you can be emissaries of peace, and that's real important. Cheryl, we haven't had a chance to really talk to you a whole lot about what you have done with mercy ships. You better believe I read all about you guys.
Yes, I was deployed a year ago, or just a little bit over a year ago, on the USNS Mercy, which is a hospital ship. We were in the South Pacific. We went to 4 different countries. These are countries, honestly, I had to look them up on the map, or they were a very big presence during World War II. If you've ever heard of the Battle of Guadalcanal, that was in the Solomon Islands, and we had to stop there. And we are also in Micronesia. If you've heard of Peleliu, the Battle of Peleliu, I went to the island, Orange Beach, where they had some of the toughest fightings there with the Marines that were there. It was so it was just, wow, it was crazy to be in that part of the world, but more importantly, a goodwill mission like you were talking about. We were doing surgeries, we were doing eye clinics, dental clinics, all free of charge for people. And it's just building those friendships, those partnerships in those areas of the world.
I think that's so important to what you do. It speaks so well of both you ladies, but also, my golly, Moses, the wonderful adventures you had, the wonderful adventures Cedric and I had. When we come back, we're going to be talking more about that as well as the opportunities, because these ladies are here. They're doing a special week here in Dallas for that. So we want to tell you a little bit about what Commodore's doing and Cheryl's doing with REDCOM. It's not what you think, but it's going to be great. It's not about the color. It's about recruiting and about reserves. So we're going to be right back with these words from all of our sponsors. This is Jim Blythe and Cedric White. We are your Veterans Impact Show. We are here to help you and provide hope, healing, and health. We're all about you, so you follow us. This is Veterans Impact Show. Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Hearts Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation.
Well, hello, I'm Cedric White, co-host of the Veterans Impact Show, here with Big Jim Blythe, our host, and with 2 special guests here today, Commodore Kaman, Lena Kaman, and Commander Cheryl Collins. And before we go any further, Commodore, I want you to help us to understand the difference between what is it that, I know you're a captain because I see the bars, right? Help us to understand what the Commodore portion means and what is REDCOM?
Correct. Yes. Thank you for that question. So like you said, captain is a rank,
right?
And that's what I wear on my shoulders. Commodore is a title and it's by position. And so in my case, I have 18 commands that report up to me. So I am in command of my own command. And then I also have 18 other commanding officers who report to me. And so that's what Commodore means.
Okay. And REDCOM?
REDCOM stands for Navy Reserve Region Readiness and Mobilization Command Fort Worth.
Oh,
Say
that's
that. REDCOM is much easier to say.
Okay, so help us to understand what exactly does that mean to, if you were talking to a civilian, explain what responsibilities come with that, within that area.
Yes, absolutely. So there's approximately 320,000 people in the Navy, and there's approximately 50,000 people in the Navy Reserve. Those 50,000 people in the Navy Reserve are distributed throughout 6 regions in the United States. I'm in charge of the region here in the Middle South.
Okay.
And so I have 18 Navy Reserve centers across 7 states, and that accounts for 7,400 people.
Oh, wow.
Approximately 400 of those people are the folks like me who go to work every day. I'm active duty, but I'm an active duty reservist because I go to work every day and I facilitate the reserves since they don't go to work every day.
Right.
And then
Okay.
the other 7,000 are the reservists. And so we're in charge of making sure that their training is done, making sure that they're paid correctly, and making sure they do all their annual medical and physical
So
requirements.
they like you.
I'm like one of the people she takes care of.
Right,
I'm one of the
right.
7,000, the traditional
Wow.
reservists.
I think that's amazing. You are over 7 states. So you've got Louisiana, so you got New Orleans,
Yes.
Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, what else? Arkansas. God bless you.
It's a large area.
It's a lot of travel.
It is. I can imagine.
And so this is such a huge job. It really sounds like a stepping stone for a flag position. We working towards being a flag officer? Now I know where the sparkle comes from.
If you were to ask my father, who is now passed away, he would give a resounding yes.
Yeah. Well, how about your twin boys? Would they give a, hey, Mom, yeah, go for it.
The twin boys, they're 5, and we call them the twin tornadoes because they keep us on our toes.
I'm looking forward to the day I get to meet them. You'll have to come to our church. It's great. Again, with reservists, you are what they call a TAR, correct?
Correct.
Which is you are a reservist, but you're active duty serving. And then you are regular reserve.
Selected reservists. And TAR means training and administration of the reserve. So they are like full-time support.
Now,
That's their job.
I've got some questions that, and maybe you can answer that. You as a reservist, you have to do, I know, 18 months active duty to qualify for certain VA benefits. So you do what? 2 years active duty or a year and a half?
I know I had an 8-year commitment.
Okay.
And so it was 8 years. And then after the 8 years, I'm no longer under a commitment. I stay in because I love it.
Mm-hmm.
But I got my VA benefits through going to Afghanistan. So once
Okay.
I deployed to Afghanistan, boom, that took over from a VA perspective.
All right. So that makes a lot of sense. So after you do 20 or 30 or whatever you want to do, you make up, you would have then a retirement?
I would, but it'd be different than active duty or even what Commodore does. I would have retirement, I believe, at 60 or 62 is when I could start taking it. So we go on a point system as a reservist. So I acquire points whenever I accomplish 4 hours of work. So they're called drill points, and you add up a certain amount of points and then you do the calculation, and you'll have a small stipend at the end of the time when it's time to retire. But I can't even touch my retirement until I'm at least 60 or 62 years old.
So one of the things, and this is what I didn't realize, I was talking to somebody, you pay into Social Security, you pay into Medicare, you also will be entitled to VA benefits, okay, which can be great. You would be entitled to PACT Act benefits as well because you served in that theater. So you work a full-time job, you can build up a tremendous retirement.
If you're being smart, if you're being fiscally responsible, you could. But I do, I pay into my own insurance. We have our own insurance program, TRICARE Reserve Select. Right. So I pay into that out of pocket. The military does not pay that for me. But I also use the VA as a means of insurance as well.
And see, that's a great deal. So you are, and then now you as a TAR, you're going to get the full retirement. Is that correct?
Correct. I'll get the full retirement, full benefits, and those benefits and retirement will start the day after I retire. I don't need to wait for a certain age.
Yeah.
With reserves, we like to think of it as get back what you give. So you're giving your time, you're giving your talents, but you're also getting all those benefits that Cheryl mentioned and more.
One of the other big things about the Navy, in my experience, is the Navy had the best educational systems. I got so much out of going through not only boot camp, but A school,
Yes.
and then back to, I think they called it a C school. The Navy's educational systems, I was told, was basically developed with the University of Tennessee. And they teach instructors how to instruct. And so the Navy's educational is, I think, is up there with the best. And not only that, but they encourage. When I went aboard the Truman, almost everybody was working on either a degree or a bachelor's, or a graduate degree. So you go into the military, life doesn't stop. Life just gets better, and you train, and so it's a tremendous head start. So when we come back, we're going to talk more about what REDCOM does and some of the things that they're offering. So this is Jim Blythe and Cedric White. We are your Veterans Impact Show. We are here for you.
Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Heart's Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation.
Well, again, Cedric White back with you on the Veterans Impact Show. We are talking to Commodore Kaman and Commander Collins about their involvement in the Navy, about their involvement with REDCOM. And I want to go back to what you were talking about before the break, Jim, in reference to the education. What I would like to ask you is, how would you talk to, I want to start with, how would you talk to a young lady who maybe has no knowledge of it, but maybe, okay, I'd like to hear about it. What would you say to them to possibly entice them to dig or look a little deeper into a Navy career?
I think that's a great question. And I think first I would want to know what interests that person has. A lot of times it's great to pair interests and skills up, use their talent.
Right.
Sometimes folks may want to specifically join the Navy, especially as a reserve, to do something different than what they do. But in this case, in the example that you gave, I think it would be best to ask her or him, what interests you? What are your talents? What are you already excelling at? And then share with them what we have in the Navy.
I love the fact, Commander, what you were saying, all of the different opportunities. When I came into the Navy, when I volunteered, I actually was going to volunteer for the Air Force. I decided, I'd made my mind up. It was going to be Air Force or Navy. And when I went to the Air Force recruiting office, they were gone to lunch. And so next day, I was bound and determined I was going to sign up this day. And so right next door was the Navy recruiter's office. And I walked in, they were there, and that's
a divine appointment.
Yeah, it really is. And if I tell you, I had no clue. Jim, when you were talking about A school and C school, I had no idea what I wanted, because I was in college. I was working at U-Haul at the time. It was hot, one of the hottest Texas summers around. And it was like, I've got to get a skill, and I need somebody to pay me. And I walked in, I took the ASVAB, it went over well, I was able to qualify. I didn't have a clue. I really didn't have a clue. And when you say divine appointment, I believe God was watching over me, because he allowed me to get a school that got me the technical expertise that I needed. I qualified as an E2. In an area where E2s weren't able to qualify, but I went from there to C school, and the career just took off from there. And a lot of people have no idea. I finished high school. I didn't know what I was going to do, but this was the best thing I believe I could have ever done. And I think a lot of people need to look into that. And I appreciate the fact that you guys are going out doing not just recruiting, but outreach. You're making the community aware of what's going on. That's a wonderful thing.
I like telling people too about the opportunities for travel and truly seeing the world.
Yes.
I've been to some of the most interesting places in the world on the government's dime, mind you, that I would have never seen otherwise. Afghanistan, South Africa, Mauritius, Seychelles, Spain, Germany, you
I
name
wanted
it.
to go
I've been
to
all
Spain.
over. Yeah. I haven't made it to Japan yet. That's
I mean,
one of the
there are
areas
places
I've been out
like
there.
Gibraltar. I even went to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba.
Right.
Places like that I would have never gone, especially at that age,
Mm-hmm.
right? On my own dime, I would have never have gone to those places. So what you're saying again, the career, the travel, I don't think it's any better. And I've got an Air Force buddy that I ride motorcycles with, and we're always, and people will come up to me. I'll have my Navy hat on, and I always get the attention. He started to wear his Air Force hat. I'm sorry, pal.
Well, Cedric, in that regard, and talking about travel, the first time I went to Hong Kong, I met some British with the British Royal Welsh Division, and they were guarding the thing with China, the border.
Right.
And these guys and I became really good friends,
Yes.
and I got to know them. So it was a chance for me. And the second time I went, there was a destroyer in, and I met those guys, and I got to go aboard the destroyer for happy hour for rum ration. And I got to meet some of the most amazing people.
Yes.
And I got to go to Hong Kong 3 times. I got to go to Singapore. I met British Royal Marines in Singapore. Had the time of my life in Singapore. Japan, many times in Japan. And I got to tell you that in the 60s was one of the most beautiful countries in the world. And the people were so great. And Philippines, man, I was in the Philippines a lot.
Same here.
And I think that you get that perspective of different third world countries. You were talking about the Seychelles and some of that. I heard the surfing and the diving down there is great. So you get to do that. But when you come back to the ship, now, this young generation won't understand what I'm saying, but my carrier, the Hancock, had one of the first significant computers, and it was bigger than this room.
Oh, wow.
And so we were doing, and it was all punch cards back then.
Right.
But we were in the cutting edge of information technology back then in 1970.
Right.
You mentioned something too that with the technology, young people, they get trained up in specific skill sets, and they're doing stuff that they would have never done before.
Yes.
I know with our Blue Angels team, that flight demonstration team, the maintainers are usually young kids that are learning aviation and mechanics, and they are the ones that are actually maintaining the jets. It's not the pilots. The pilots don't do that at all. And so that's a high level of trust for a young person that could be 20, 21 years old. They're being taught all these on-the-job skills that they would have never had normally. When are you going to be working on an F-18, as a 19 or 20-year-old?
Cheryl, the average age on a carrier is probably 22, maybe. And that's everybody, including the CO of the boat and the chaplain. One of the things that is so amazing about that, though, is you can go into the military and you start doing that job right now.
Right away.
Right.
Friend of mine went through med school thanks to the Navy and did their deal in internship in Balboa Naval Hospital. He went on to be one of the greatest flight surgeons the Navy ever had, and he was a test pilot. I also know Pete Dimitri, who was Air Force, who was a test pilot and a medical doctor. And all of the things that they were doing. So you want to be a doctor? They'll put you through med school.
Yes.
You want to be a lawyer? They'll put you through law school, with JAG Corps. But you talked about a 19-year-old working on a plane. Here's the other thing about the military that I've had so many conversations and my involvement with all levels of military. Who runs the Navy? The chiefs, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Woody Beale made that point to me. And we laughed about it because he asked me when I interviewed him, and I said, well, the chiefs. We have an enlisted leadership program inherent within our U.S. military that gives young men and women the chance to do things they never get a chance to do. And as a result, we've got the best military in the world. I will tell you that I have interviewed men who were ranking flag officers who went to the Soviet Union. One of them flew in a Soviet jet. He said, let me tell you, Jim, I walked up to that plane and I didn't want to get in it because I could tell the maintenance.
Right.
And they don't have the same training and leadership in their enlisted ranks that we do.
We treat everyone as a leader.
Oh, absolutely.
No matter the age, no matter how junior, the most junior sailor might have the best idea.
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's teamwork. And it's training. I went through every firefighting school a Navy had. And here's the other thing they tell you: whatever you do, don't volunteer. Nope. I was sitting there, and they had a ready room meeting of my squadron. We'd just come back to the States. We had 4 tandem seat A4 Skyhawks, and they said, "We need some people to fly. Anybody want to go?" So I qualified, and I flew for about 4.5 months in the back seat of an A4, TA4, in Fallon, Nevada, and China Lake. I saw Chocolate Mountain way too close and personal. And I will tell you that there is no thrill in the world like flying a fighter. Now, you've flown that kind of aircraft. You know what I'm talking about. It's an amazing thing, and especially when you're doing all the training, whether it's in-flight refueling, or you're doing road recce, or you're doing rockets, or you're doing bombs. And if you want a real thrill, do a sand blower. And I've done a bunch of those, and that's where the simulated nuclear run. That'll get your attention. So where else are you going to get that? And I volunteered.
And Jim, let me bring back one of the things that Commander mentioned a moment ago, and that is we've been talking about young people coming in, right? People coming in maybe straight out of high school and that kind of thing. But understanding that you had a career already, and then you decided to come in. I think that's an area that's not often talked about. Can you elaborate on that?
A little bit, yeah, because I had a friend that was a P3 pilot in the Navy, and I would hear about his amazing adventures, literally the Navy Flight Travel Club.
Okay.
And so that's what started piquing my interest, because I just didn't think you could do what I do and serve in the military. I didn't want to give up my civilian career, honestly. I loved what I did. But there was part of me that still wanted to serve. Okay. And so whenever I found out about the Direct Commission Officers Program, or now in the Navy Reserve too, if you were someone that had served in the past, was enlisted, got out, and is doing their own career, you can still come back in if you meet certain age requirements. So I really feel like I have the best of both worlds, because I'm getting to do my career, but I'm having these amazing adventures too with the Navy Reserve, meeting people, getting new qualifications. You were talking about training, Jim. I'm going to be taking a course next month about the Maritime Operations Certification. It's basically where those big tactical centers where you see where all the ships and all the assets are. I'm going to learn how to be certified to help do watch standing there. As a public affairs officer, I mean, who gets to do that?
Right.
That's pretty cool.
You're basically going up on the bridge.
in a big tactical, maritime operations center. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that would be exciting.
But that's one of the things I think is probably one of the biggest problems, is that level of ignorance. And ignorance is just not knowing, right? Not knowing that these things are available.
And it's a marketing issue.
Exactly.
It's truly, if it's not marketed, you don't know.
You don't know. You don't know. And people don't even figure out, well, I'm 26, I'm 27, I'm 30. And it's too late. No, it's not.
We think of the Navy Reserve as an adventure on your own terms. And so you can make it what you will. And some folks might already have a family. Like we've talked about, they might be established in their job, but still come and join and serve as you can. Some folks come and do the minimum requirement, and that's fine. We need those folks. Some folks may not have as many family demands or civilian career demands and can serve more. And so adventure on your own terms.
I love
that. You know, Cheryl, you were talking about, Commander, you were talking about your career and what you have in your business. I also saw something where you've done documentaries for the Navy.
I have, back in 2015, we celebrated 100 years of the Navy Reserve. And so I actually got put on orders to do a promo video about the Navy Reserve and its history, 100-year history. In fact, that's how I met Commodore, back in 2014 when I was working on it. So I went out and I shot interviews I had people who were actual reservists telling the history of the reserve. You can still look it up on YouTube today. It's just Navy Reserve's Centennial or History. And it's amazing. I think we had like 5 presidents that were Navy reservists. Jimmy Carter, I remember being one of the more famous ones. And it was just such a good time to use my skill set, but in the capacity of the Navy Reserve.
And let me tell you something. Anytime you get to do something like that, you grow as a result. The tougher the assignment, the more you grow. And I think that is so amazing. And the amazing young men and women that I'm talking to that are coming out of the military, one of the things is we get so many calls. I do. And I think Cedric does as well. Hey, do you know some vet who'd like to go to work? Because I need somebody to go to work, and they do more.
Right.
They show up on time. We don't have to tell them what to do, you know? And they're so skilled. And I'm like, yeah.
The discipline. The discipline makes all the difference in the world. And if the military taught me nothing else, it was that level of discipline that I still, and it drives my wife crazy because punctuality, right? From you can't arrive for a flight that leaves at 8 o'clock, right? And be on the flight at 8. You have to be there a little earlier. So that was something that we had to get used to. But just those great things.
Teamwork too.
Yes.
I think that's like one of the biggest things is being in the military teaches you how to be a contributing member of a team.
Yeah. And
if you don't do your job, if you're not punctual, if you're not doing it correctly, you not only fail yourself, but you fail your team.
And you stick out. One of the things that I loved about especially when I got to the ship, it was one thing in boot camp, it was one thing in A school, C school, but when I got to the ship, the knowledge of other cultures, the knowledge of people from other places, things that you thought in one area, you figured out, that wasn't real. And that's when I became what I consider to be more of a proud citizen of the United States, right? Because I became to love my country. I went to see other countries and realized, wow, we have it great here. And I became a patriot at that time because the United States, we have problems. We're not perfect, but oh my goodness, this is a great place.
We're blessed. I remember when I was in the Solomon Islands back in 2013 on a different mission, I saw some kids that were going around with a bicycle that didn't even have wheels, just playing because that was their favorite toy.
Wow.
And I was like, I truly remember that image, how blessed we are. And they were just so joyful, even where they were with what they had. And so it was eye-opening, like you said.
Really,
it really was.
We got to go to orphanages and things like that. I didn't get to do as much as I would have liked to, but interacting with the people, and let me tell you, you take a bus ride through the Philippines in the 1960s, that was an adventure. It's not the same anymore today, and I don't think we've got that base in Subic Bay.
No.
But it was so different, you know? It was so amazingly different, and yet we were welcome wherever we went. Hong Kong, Singapore, you name it. Okinawa. So what we're talking about, we're going to wrap up in a minute. You want to know, you want to find out, well, there's a thing called the Navy Reserve, and I'm sure they'll educate you, and they'll train you, and they'll give you an opportunity. You want to go to college? There are scholarship programs. There are great programs. You want to go to law school? You want to go to med school? What do you want to do? You want to shine? You want to be a great step up in life? The military does an enormously great job, and I am a little bit partial because I'm third generation Navy. It works. It worked for me, worked for Cedric. So when we come back and wrap up, we are having a great day, and thank you, Commodore, and thank you, Commander, for being on board. We got more to wrap this up.
Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Heart's Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation.
Well, welcome back. This is Jim Blythe and Cedric White, and we're with Commodore Kaman and Commander Collins. They are with REDCOM, which is the reserves and training and readiness. We're going to be talking more about that in just a second. I want to again say a special thank you to DBTV Network, to my company, Symbios, that I volunteer for, as well as Fairway Independent Mortgage. We're here for you to serve veterans and to serve our community. That's what it's all about. And Cedric, he does the most magnificent marriage management training I have ever attended. So you want to know more, contact us. VeteransImpactShow.com. I'm Jim at Veterans Impact Show. And Cedric, what is your email?
It's Cedric at hearts.org. So HEARTS.org.
And I got to tell you, he is also one of the most amazing ministers, not about religion, but about a relationship. And that's what we are trying to tell you. It's about a relationship with your brothers and your sisters. And now we've got sisters in the military that are doing amazing jobs in leadership. So I got to ask a question. How did you get the handle Sparkleberry? This I got to hear.
So in aviation, we typically have call signs, and usually the tradition is that you don't like your call sign. Don't tell anyone, but I love my call sign. I love Sparkleberry. So the story goes like this. When we fly our helicopter, we use our own helmet and our own gear. But when we train in the simulator, you swap headsets halfway through. So one particular day, I was doing a simulator with my shipmate, and halfway through, we swapped headsets. And my flight buddy, after a few minutes, he kind of started sniffing. And he's like, Lena, are you chewing watermelon bubble gum? And I said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Let's just keep doing our simulator. And a couple minutes later, he started sniffing again. And he said, well, were you eating fruit? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just trying to do my simulator here. And then he said, well, this boom microphone of your headset, it just smells like fruit. And, you know, I'm in my upper 40s and still naive. At that point, I was 24 and naive. And so I just blurted out, oh, it must be my Sparkleberry lip gloss. I truly had a tube of lip gloss that was called Sparkleberry.
And it stuck.
And it stuck. And I, to this day, never leave home without my lip gloss in my flight suit pocket. That's awesome.
That's awesome. You know, that sometimes, Commodore, I don't ask that question because I know how they got it. And I got to tell you, too, one of the most amazing things is I do believe that Navy pilot training, and I know Air Force would get a little riled up, but you do things so intensely and you do so much more. You can't land on an aircraft carrier deck or a ship like the Leyte Gulf at night in a rainstorm without an enormous amount of training as well as intestinal fortitude. And so our Navy pilots, I think, are the best in the world. When you talk to a Navy pilot that was, for instance, you talked about an Orion pilot, P3, those guys are out there flying 8, 10, 12 hours out over the ocean. Ain't nothing there. Help them. Thank God for GPS. But those guys were back flying that in Vietnam when we didn't have GPS. And you talk about, too, the helicopter. One of the things is I talked with the guys in that squadron in Virginia Beach, and they're like, we're the first ones called when there's a hurricane. We're there. And so our Navy is there, whether it's combat, whether it's interdiction, whether it's safety, or whether it's a disaster. We're there. And a lot of people don't know that.
I think the caliber of the folks who are joining is so high to begin with. We are getting amazing young folks. But then all my time in the helicopter training squadron, our mission was not only to train a warfighting aviator, but it was to mentor a world-class officer. So it starts right there at the beginning of flight school, where we know how important it is to teach the flight skills, but also to teach the officer type skills too.
Leadership. Every flag officer I've ever met is amazing. I mean, they really are. And I'm like, wow. I wish I'd had that kind of training. Seriously, I really do. They even have, I think they call it a charm school, to work with the PAOs to be able to do interviews, to be able to do things like that. So it's a great thing. And obviously, if somebody wanted to know more, where would they go to find out? What would be the best place to start learning about the Navy Reserve?
So you can go to Navy.com. So very easy to remember, Navy.com, and that'll point you in the right direction. If you click on the menu, there'll be an option, Ways to Join, and then that'll pull down another menu option, and you can click on the reserves.
And we've got huge reserve base right here in Dallas, Fort Worth, in the Joint Reserve Base. It used to be Carswell. I think it still is to a degree. This is important for you to know, and it's also important to you to know for your children. What a great opportunity. And Diane and I are instructors with Sea Cadets. We help the next generation, and it's so important. Many of our kids are single parent family kids. And all of a sudden, you're getting discipline, you're getting learning, you're getting mentorship, you're getting the military in a fabulous way for young men and women. And so we highly, highly recommend. Matter of fact, Dan Bradley is a Sea Cadet who is now a commander in the United States Navy, and he works for you. So I want to say a special thank you for what you've done. Thank you for coming to Dallas, and thank you for joining us on Veterans Impact Show. And Cedric, let's close it with a prayer.
Let's do that. All right. So, Father, we thank you so much for this country. We thank you for those who volunteer to protect this country. We thank you for people like Commander Kaman and Commander Collins and Commodore Kaman. We thank you that they spend their time helping those who need knowledge about the Navy. We thank you for this nation that you've given us, not perfect, but an excellent place to be. Lord, we pray that this nation would continue and come back to being one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. And thank you so much for being with us on Veterans Impact Show. We're here for you. Follow us on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, and go to DBTV. We're here for you.